Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Shri Caitanya Charitamrita ki. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. We're reading from Sri Caitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 21, the opulence and sweetness of Lord Krishna. This is the start of the chapter, text 1. I think this is text 1 on the board, no? Yeah, okay. Agatyeka gatim natva Agatyeka gatim natva Hinarthadika sadakam Hinarthadika sadakam Shri Chaitanyam likamyasya Shri Chaitanyam likamyasya Madhuraishvarya Shikaram Madhuryaishvarya Shikaram Agatyeka gatim natva Hinarthadika sadakam Shri Chaitanyam likamyasya Madhuryaishvarya Shikaram Agatyeka gatim natva Madhuryaishvarya Shikaram Gatyeka gatim natva Hinarthadika sadakam Shri Chaitanyam likamasya Madhuryaishvarya Shikaram. Ladies? Agatyeka gatim natva Vinarthadikasadhakam Chaitanyam Nikamyasya Madhurya Shekaram. Okay. Agati ekagatim, to the only shelter for the conditioned souls who do not know the goal of life. Natva, offering obeisances. Hina artha, of the necessities of the conditioned souls who are poor in spiritual knowledge. Adhika, increase. Sadhakam, bringing about. Sri Chaitanyam, unto Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Likhami, I am writing. Asya, of him. Madhurya Aishwarya, of the sweetness and opulence. Shikaram, a small portion. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Offering my obeisances unto Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, let me describe a particle of his opulence and sweetness. He is most valuable for a fallen conditioned soul bereft of spiritual knowledge, and he is the only shelter for those who do not know the real goal of life. Now we'll read a few more verses up to around 15, because there are no purports for this section. So you can just hear and just absorb the story. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Acharya. And all glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, all the transcendental forms of the Lord are situated in the spiritual sky. They preside over spiritual planets in that abode, but there is no counting those Vaikuntha planets. The breadth of each Vaikuntha planet is described as 8 miles multiplied by 100, by 1,000, by 10,000, by 100,000, and by 10 million. In other words, each Vaikuntha planet is expanded beyond our ability to measure. Each Vaikuntha planet is very large, and each is made of spiritual bliss. The inhabitants are all associates of the Supreme Lord, and they have full opulence like the Lord himself. This is how the Vaikuntha planets are all situated. Since all the Vaikuntha planets are located in a certain corner of the spiritual sky, who can measure the spiritual sky? The shape of the spiritual sky is compared to a lotus flower. The topmost region of that flower is called a whirl, and within that whirl is Krishna's abode. The petals of the spiritual lotus flower consist of many Vaikuntha planets. Each Vaikuntha planet is full of spiritual bliss, complete opulence and space, and each is inhabited by incarnations. If Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva cannot estimate the length and breadth of the spiritual sky and the Vaikuntha planets, how can ordinary living entities begin to imagine them? O Supreme Great One, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, O Super Soul, Master of all mystic power, your pastimes are taking place continuously in these worlds, but who can estimate where, how, and when you are employing your spiritual energy and performing your pastimes? No one can understand the mystery of these activities. The spiritual qualities of Krishna are also unlimited. Great personalities like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the 4 Kumaras cannot estimate the spiritual qualities of the Lord. In time, great scientists may be able to count all the atoms of the universe, all the stars and planets in the sky, and all the particles of snow. But who among them can count the unlimited transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He descends on the surface of the globe for the benefit of all living entities. To say nothing of Lord Brahma, even Lord Ananta, who has thousands of heads, cannot reach the end of the Lord's transcendental qualities, even though he is continuously chanting their praises. If I, Lord Brahma, and your elder brothers, the great saints and sages, cannot understand the limits of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is full of various energies, who else can understand them? Although constantly chanting about his transcendental qualities, the thousand-hooded Lord Shesha has not yet reached the end of the Lord's activities. To say nothing of Anantadev, even Lord Krishna himself cannot find an end to his own transcendental qualities. Indeed, he himself is always eager to know them. And then this is today's verse. It's quite a long verse. My Lord, you are unlimited. Even the predominating deities of the higher planetary systems, including Lord Brahma, cannot find your limitations. Nor can you yourself ascertain the limit of your qualities. Like atoms in the sky, there are multiverses with 7 coverings, and these are rotating in due course of time. All the experts in Vedic understanding are searching for you by eliminating the material elements. In this way, searching and searching, they come to the conclusion that everything is complete in you. Thus you are the resort of everything. This is the conclusion of all Vedic experts. Srila Prabhupada ki. And now the purport to this verse by Srila Prabhupada. This verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 1087-41, which was spoken by the personified Vedas, is confirmed by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvam iti samahatma sudurlabha. After many, many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Even after searching for the absolute truth throughout the universe, learned scholars and Vedic experts cannot reach the ultimate goal. In this way, they come to Krishna. When there is a discussion about the absolute truth, there are always various pros and cons. The purpose of such arguments is to come to the right conclusion. Such an argument is generally known as neti neti, not this, not that. Until one comes to the right conclusion, the process of thinking this is not the absolute truth, that is not the absolute truth, will continue. When we come to the right conclusion, we accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as the ultimate truth. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna. So what an interesting series of verses giving us a picture of the spiritual world. A picture of the spiritual world, and by extension, an understanding of how small the material world is. This whole chapter contains many verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so this is one of the symptoms of the Caitanya Caritamrita, that all of the philosophical points that are made are backed up by Shastra. And this is indeed Srila Prabhupada's mood also, in the sense that he wanted us to recite the Bhagavatam verses every day, and so that we would become familiar with the Bhagavatam, with the Bhagavad Gita, even the Caitanya Caritamrita as authentic sources of authority. So here specifically, starting from verse 1, there is a description of the spiritual world. The chapter is called The Opulence and Sweetness of Lord Krishna. And it may remind you of the chapter in the Bhagavad Gita, which also deals with the opulence of the Lord, where it is explained how the Lord manifests his energy through everything within the material world, and that anything that there is desirable is only desirable because the Lord has his essence there. It is by the Lord's potency. I am the taste of the water, I am the light of the sun, I am the fragrance of the earth, Krishna says. And so even as we walk around, just walking through the gardens or just walking through the material world, we can actually detect Krishna's presence even in the material world. But this is the material world. And beyond this material world, there is a different realm, the spiritual world. And this spiritual world actually comprises the real glory of the Lord, the real glory. You know, from the Bhagavad Gita it is said, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. Krishna says, I am the source of the material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this engage in my service. That's ultimately the consequence, or you can say the conclusion, of understanding the greatness of the Lord. When we understand the greatness of the Lord, there should be some result. And that result is that we engage in the Lord's service. Because after all, in this world, we are attracted by so many things. Isn't it? Things of power attract us. If there is a very powerful person, we find that attractive. If someone has a particular Shakti in some area, whatever that area, we find that attractive. And so Krishna has these 6 opulences, right? We know the 6 opulences, the bhagyas of Krishna. Knowledge, fame, renunciation, beauty, wealth, wisdom, right? And we say that only Krishna possesses all of these opulences in full. Other people may have some portion of the opulences. Maybe someone is wealthy, maybe someone is beautiful. But who is there in this world who actually possesses all of them in full? Only Krishna. And so when we actually hear about Krishna's glories, it is also useful to hear about his abode, which is of the same nature. It is of the same glorious, beautiful nature. And so we hear from the Srimad Bhagavatam that how the entire world is constituted. Srimad Bhagavatam or Brahma Samhita specifically. Goloka namni nijadhamni tale chatasya devi mahesha haridama suteshu teshu te prabhava nichaya vihitascha govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Goloka namni nijadhamne tale chatasya. So there is a planet called Goloka, which is his planet, Krishna's planet. And then there are a few other locations. Devi Mahesha Haridham. So here we're speaking about the spiritual sky and the Vaikuntha planets. And so this Haridham is the Vaikuntha planets, the places where the Lord expands in his different incarnations, his different forms which the devotees appreciate and love. There's a planet where Lord Nrsimhadev is to be found. There's a planet where Matsyadev will be there. There's a planet where Kurma will be there. In fact, any avatar, any form of the Lord, and there are unlimited avatars, right? We understand that there is a certain list given, maybe 12, a list of 12 principal avatars, and another list of 20, 21 different avatars. But then the description is given that avatarahi asankhyaya, that the actual numbers of avatars of the Lord, forms of the Lord, are unlimited. And they are as unlimited as there are branches of a river. Just as a river may have multiple streams. So similarly, the Lord is the fountainhead of all the different Vaikuntha expansions of himself. And they are unlimited also. And who can count them? This is very nice for us to meditate on, because in our normal lives we meditate on many items to do with the material world. And by that meditation, all that happens is that we simply develop and build our future destination. We build our future body, because through our thoughts, our meditations, our actions, our desires, we are actually creating our next destination in this material world. So you can imagine that if our consciousness now shifts from the details of the material world, maybe the countries in the world, the planets, the different occupations that people do, the different subjects, if our consciousness shifts from topics of this world to topics of the spiritual world, then we have a chance that at the end of this life, we will have created for ourselves, by Krishna's mercy, our new destination. Now, our destinations are chosen by our consciousness. And that's why there are so many verses, so many important points which explain how important it is to become solidly Krishna conscious throughout one's life. Right? It's the rarity of devotional service was explained in this verse. But we also understand that antakale chamam eva smaran muktva kalevaram. Whatever one thinks about at the time of death, one attains that as their next destination. I.e., you receive that as your nature. And when you have a particular nature, according to your subtle body, the gross body is given. Ultimately, when we leave this world, both the subtle and gross bodies are destroyed. They are cast off, they are burnt. And the spirit soul naturally manifests its own supreme spiritual body, spiritual form. And that form is designed for living in the spiritual realm. And so we have this odd situation while we're here in this material world. We are a spirit soul. In fact, sometimes we say we have a soul, but that's not quite correct. Because who has the soul? We actually are the soul and we have the body. That is the correct way to see it. That our actual identity is spiritual, pure spiritual. And then as a result of being in this world, we have a subtle body, mind, intelligence, ego, and then we have the gross body, which allows us to interact. Shri Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki, Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki. And so we interact in this world with this equipment. You can call it equipment, like some apparatus. A very well-engineered machine, right? Yantra rudhani mayaya. That is how it's described, that the living entity is seated as if on a machine made of material energy. And it's a well-made machine, but it is ultimately faulty. Ultimately faulty, because we experience regularly how something goes wrong with it. Something goes wrong, we need to see the doctor, we may need an operation. If something is okay physically, maybe something is wrong in the head. Maybe the mental condition is wrong. This is a bit like maybe the software has gone wrong. So something often breaks with this machine, even though it is such an elaborately constructed machine. So, I mean, it's wonderful actually. It is far more sophisticated than any man-made machine. But still, it breaks, and it is defective. And the major defect is that this machine keeps us in this world of Asat, Achit, and Nirananda. It keeps us in this world which is temporary, full of ignorance, and a place where there is no happiness, or very little happiness, you can say. So imagine this odd situation that we're in. The spirit soul, which is completely the opposite, Sat Chit Ananda. The spirit soul is eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss, is trapped within this body and this environment, which is exactly the opposite of the nature of the soul. It is only the subtle body that makes this odd situation possible, because it acts as the sandwich between the gross and the subtle, and the gross body and the spirit soul. So actually the living entity is never happy in this condition. If our nature is to be constantly happy, but constantly throughout the day, something unpleasant happens to us. Right? There's a nice verse by Prahlad Maharaj. Sukham aindriyakam daitya deha yogena dehinam sarvatra labhyate daivat yatha dukkham ayatnataha. Prahlad Maharaj explains that just as miseries come to us automatically without requesting them. So similarly, happiness also comes. Now, how many of us wake up in the morning and think, okay, today I will have a miserable day? Who thinks this? Every morning we get up after we have had a shower, after we are dressed, and we look forward to a day full of happiness, isn't it? And we think of all the things that we might do, and in our mind there is the idea that I will be happy today. But somehow Prahlad Maharaj says that during the course of the day, distress also comes, and we did not invite it. It came without our request. And then Prahlad Maharaj also explains that just as we can see that distress comes without our request, actually all the happiness we get is also coming without our request. Now that requires a little intelligence to understand, because we think we are working so hard to gain that happiness. But actually you can just look at the dog in the street. The dog is walking by, it is jumping up and down, maybe barking, sniffing something, smelling something, eating something. Dog is happy, right? Sometimes the dog seems more happy than the humans. And what did the dog do to earn that? Nothing, really. He didn't make elaborate plans. He didn't plan a whole technological system, a whole civilization based on ugra karma. He didn't make elaborate arrangements for sense gratification, for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. No, the dog is happy. And so sometimes you can also find that people who are not the most sophisticated people, maybe you can say in an undeveloped place, or maybe in some tribe in the forest, they're also happy. They also have happiness. They have their moments of pleasure. And so actually an intelligent person can see that there is not a direct link between our efforts and our pleasure. In the same way that there is not a direct link between the pain that we get and our desire for it. So the idea of this kind of thought process is to give us the idea and to make our mind focused on the point that as long as we are here in this material world, we will be subject to happiness and distress. It will come automatically, right? Matra sparshas tu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhada agama paino nityastam stitikshasva bharata. Just as the winter and the summer seasons come, and one learns to simply tolerate them. You can't complain all day when it's winter. Who will listen to you? Winter is going to be winter. You can be miserable, you can complain, but better if you just do something about it. Better you just wear something warm and just go about and preach the Sankirtan mission. That's the most sensible thing to do. So in life we tolerate this, and if you're in a particularly hot country, you have a different problem, the problem of the intense heat. But ultimately you just have to tolerate them because that's life. And so similarly, a sober person also learns to tolerate happiness and distress. Through practice of yoga, through practice of regulation, one simply learns that one has to tolerate happiness and distress at all times. But there is something that we should know. It is that we can tolerate and we can be in an equipoised state, and that will give us a lot of relief from just the mental distress of trying to control. But we should also know that there is a place. There is a place, there is a realm which is actually made for us. Which is actually made for us. It is actually of the same nature as us, the soul. Satchit Ananda. And that's why a great deal of our study in Krishna consciousness, of our Krishna conscious instruction, our preaching, is based upon telling people about the spiritual world. They have no idea what the spiritual world is. They might look at this world, look at the news, look at the stories, the description, and they may think, oh, I would like to go to this country. I definitely don't want to go to this country. I would like to go here for a holiday. I would like to experience this new item to eat. I would like to try this drink. I would like to go to this theme park and have this experience. All the different sense gratification options in this world, we meditate upon them and we develop our plans. But spiritual life and spiritual information and spiritual people will give us deeper information. They will tell us that even if you go to all of these sources of sense gratification, you will ultimately be unsatisfied, because the soul will not be satisfied by any amount of matter. The best matter in the world will not satisfy the soul. Ultimately, you need to go to your abode. And your abode is Krishna's abode. Krishna's abode, or one of his numerous planets. As I started off, we have Goloka, we have Haridham, we have Maheshtam, the abode of Lord Shiva, which is a kind of hybrid place. And Lord Shiva himself is a little bit of a complicated personality to understand. He's Vishnu himself, but just like milk is transformed into yogurt, he has a material connection also. Shiram yatha dadivikara vishesha yogat. And then we have another abode called Devi Dham. This is the abode of Durga Devi. And this is the abode that we are in right now. This entire material realm is presided over by Durga Devi. And it is said she has a weapon, a trident. It has 3 points. And these 3 points are the modes of nature. And with this weapon, she's poking everyone. So you have a dose of goodness. You have a dose of passion and ignorance. And in accordance with all of this, the living entity is simply wandering in this world, suffering and suffering. Or engaging in some activities, some pastimes, trying to find some pleasure. So within these different graded realms, as the Brahma Samhita describes, of those, the top 2 are of great interest for the practitioners of Krishna Bhakti. Krishna's planet Goloka, which itself is so vast, it has 3 divisions within it, where different pastimes of the Lord take place in the different sections. Then all the innumerable Vaikuntha planets, where one can have so much enjoyment and engage in so much loving reciprocation with the Supreme Lord. Sometimes people say there is no bhakti in the Vaikuntha planets. Now, how is that possible? It's impossible. It's not possible to be in the spiritual world unless one is connected to the Lord in pleasing service. There is definitely bhakti in the Vaikuntha planets. Definitely the loving reciprocation between the devotees of the Lord and the Lord himself. Do you think that when there is a form of Lord Vishnu or Matsyadev or Kurma, that the devotees don't have love for him? No, of course they do. They have love for him. But the mood of the Vaikuntha planets is that atmosphere is pervaded with a sense of Aishwarya and reverence. There may be opulence and there may be a sense of reverence where we approach the Lord in a dasya mood, that you, dear Lord, are the supreme Lord and Master, and I offer service to you at your lotus feet. Now that's very nice. But what you get in the topmost planet, in Goloka, is the full development of all the different rasas. You have the gopis who are engaged in the Madhurya ras with Krishna. You have the cowherd boys. You have the Vatsalya ras, the parental rasa. Now some of these are also found in the Vaikuntha planets, of course. But what we're saying is that the full, complete development of all the rasas is to be found in Krishna's supreme abode, the Goloka planet, where you see that as the full manifestation of his pastimes here in Vrindavan. When he comes to Vrindavan, he brings his abode with him, and that place is Bhauma Vrindavan, Vrindavan on earth. That original Goloka that is now being hinted at here is the original place. And it was described that the spiritual world can be seen as a lotus. And so you can see just the descriptions of the spiritual world are themselves so beautiful. They're so desirable. They actually attract you to want to go there. All the spiritual realm, even though it is vast, it is compared to a lotus with all its unlimited petals. And right in the middle of that lotus is the topmost planet Goloka, Krishna Loka, Krishna's abode, where the place is full of transcendental gemstones, Chintamani Prakara Sadma Sukalpa Vriksha, Lakshavriteshu Surabhira Vipalayantam, Lakshmi Sahasra Shata Sambrahma Sevyamanam, Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. And then Alola Chandra Kala Sattvanamalia Vamsi. Krishna is there in this glistening realm which is made of transcendental touchstone, where the trees are wish-fulfilling trees. The cows are desire-fulfilling cows. There you don't need to work. There is no need to earn money. There is no need to pay bills. If you need something, you simply go to the Kalpavriksha tree and say, I would like this, and immediately it manifests. That place, the transcendental realm, is not illuminated by the sun, the moon, or electricity. Right? As we hear in the Gita. That spiritual realm is fully self-effulgent. And there Radha and Krishna are worshipped along with all their devotees. Multiple pastimes are arranged every day by the different entities in the spiritual realm. And they only have one goal in mind. Their only one goal is somehow, let's have fun today and give pleasure to Radha and Krishna. They don't have to worry about all the tricky things we have to deal with here. Where will the money come from? How will I look after my family? How will I deal with the house? How will I look after how will I fulfill my obligations to society? How will I deal with the devas, the bhutas, the rishis, the aptas? We are already told in the Gita, Devarshi Bhutaptananam, Nakinkaro, that all our obligations to the demigods, to the rishis, to our ancestors, all of them can be removed by spiritual life, by pure devotional service to the Lord. So in the spiritual realm, this is the full manifestation of that consciousness. That the only reason one is there in Goloka is to give pleasure to Krishna. There has to be a complete absence of envy. If anyone is envious, they are not allowed in. It's as simple as that. Because there the predominating quality is that I exist to give Krishna pleasure. And envy means I am here as the Lord and Master of all I survey, and I am here to enjoy the resources of material nature. And even we are so arrogant as to think that I am the doer of these activities carried out by nature. Therefore in the Gita it is said, Prakrite kriyamanani gunais karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudhatma kartam iti manyate. As a result of the false ego, which is the root, you can say the root substance that produces envy. That false ego allows you to be envious of Krishna. True ego, real ego, there's no envy of Krishna. True ego means, my dear Lord Krishna, I am eternally your servant, your part and parcel, designed to give you pleasure, and I'm completely happy with that. That is real ego. And as soon as that ego manifests, which is an absence of envy, then we are eligible to go to the spiritual world. That is our visa, if you like. That is our entrance ticket to go there. Now in this whole section, in these 15 or so verses that we read, Mahaprabhu describes the glories of the spiritual sky. Lord Brahma describes the glories of the sky. He describes that the spiritual world is so vast that even Krishna cannot describe its glories. Even Krishna is unable to understand the extent of his own glories. We hear this often, and it gives us something really to meditate on. Here is Krishna, who knows absolutely everything, and he is bewildered by his own greatness. How can that be? Well, it's because nothing is static in the spiritual world. Everything is ever expanding. One moment you can describe Krishna, the next moment he has expanded. Your description is no longer sufficient. And therefore Anantadev is somehow struggling to try to figure out how to describe Lord Krishna. And he can't manage it. And of course Krishna includes his pastimes, his abode, his paraphernalia, everything. It all is included in that concept, Krishna. And in fact, the whole spiritual world is an expansion of Krishna's energy. All the living entities are Krishna's internal potency. So it is a world which is completely different. Because it is a world which offers a special, intimate connection with the Lord, not everyone is allowed there. You cannot have the wrong people in this world, because they will cause havoc otherwise. If envy turns up in the world, all of the enjoyable activities of Radha Krishna, the gopis, the gopas, they will all be spoiled. So therefore, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. After many, many births, Prabhupada writes in one of these purports, after many, many births, after purification through many lifetimes, one who is in knowledge actually surrenders to me. Now somehow we've all got this opportunity that in this life we have come into contact with this transcendental knowledge, which is the topmost knowledge. There is no comparison to the depth of the knowledge, just that is revealed in this section we read today. There's no material book that will tell you this, because this is a book that creates for you your new world. Just this little description. If after many, many births we've somehow come to a point of being able to think about the spiritual world, then we should take that opportunity and grasp it very strongly. Who knows if we will get it again? If Krishna sees that in this life, I gave you access to my topmost planet, I gave you access to my Harinam Sankirtan mission, which isn't available every Kali Yuga. Lord Chaitanya's presence is not here every Kali Yuga. Even though Sankirtan is still the Yuga Dharma, Lord Chaitanya does not come every single Kali Yuga. And he does not freely spread love of Godhead just so that you can pick it up. Just by chanting the holy name, instantly you get love of Godhead. Just by preaching something about his glories, you have a chance to taste that nectar that Lord Chaitanya distributed. And so it is such a rare privilege and opportunity that we have now. And so this is a bit like a transcendental geography lesson. You will study countries, etc., at school in geography lessons. This is the transcendental geography. This planet is like a lotus. There are the agents of the Lord on the Vaikuntha planets, and they look like the Lord. Salokya, Sarshti, Samipya. According to whatever they wish, they have a form like the Lord, the qualities of the Lord, the strength of the Lord. And they all happily engage in serving the Lord. So this is like your brochure. You know, like sometimes the holiday brochure is given to you. And they make a little booklet, a tour company. Says, go to Hawaii. Or go to, I don't know, what other place do you like? Barbados, or maybe do a trip to Antarctica and see the penguins. Whatever people like. You see this brochure, it has pictures, it has descriptions, and a price at the bottom, which is normally quite exciting also. And you, based on that information, you feel attracted. And you discuss in the family, you say, I would like to go there. Then you start saving up, and then yes, you go there, based upon just hearing the description. So sometimes I like to see that these spiritual world descriptions are like that. They're like this brochure that's been made by Krishna just to attract us. Lord Chaitanya is telling us, look, in this place, there are sweets that you've never even dreamt were possible, let alone tasted. There are trees that are so vast, so gigantic, and they can produce fruits that you never even thought about. There is a river which is so wonderful that you can just spend all day bathing in there. There is nectar which will just make you intoxicated for the whole day. And you think, oh, maybe I would like to go there. And that's exactly the purpose of literature. That is exactly the purpose of Krishna-conscious Shastra. It gives us a little introduction to something which we never contemplated before. It tells us, here is a place you can go. Here is what you can do when you go there. And so then we have to save. You want to go to somewhere exotic, you have to save for it. Save your money. Every salary comes, you put a little bit in the savings. So now we have to also desire that if we want to go to the spiritual world, we have to start accumulating. What do we accumulate? We accumulate spiritual piety. We accumulate spiritual shakti. Not quite the punya of this world. The punya and pap is material. But we have to accrue spiritual credits. And we, through our practice of devotional service, we become more and more qualified to go to the spiritual world. And our anarthas are removed. And eventually, when the process is complete, 100%, and we have got the price for the ticket, pure surrender, full purification of the heart, and then we have the visa also, complete absence of envy, then we can go there. And then we stay there permanently. Otherwise, any other destination in this world, you go there for some time. When the money runs out, you come back down again. Brahma bhuvana loka punar avartino arjuna. Mamupetya tukaunteya punar dukhalayam ashashvatam. That from the topmost planet of Lord Brahma down to the lowest, all are places of misery. And even if we travel to them, we will have to come back down again. The Gita in different verses explains this. The spiritual world, but there is that realm which from having reached, one never returns. That is the spiritual world. And so, hopefully by hearing some of these verses, you feel a little attracted. Let me be with Krishna. Let me be in the spiritual world with him, which is my natural home, where I will render service to him in full satisfaction. And because you have such a wonderful environment here, which is a temple of the Lord, this is meant to be a replica, Vaikuntha, a replica Vrindavan. And here we can practice these behaviors. We can practice non-envy. After all, where else will you practice it? This is the place to do that. This is the place to learn about the spiritual world. This is the place to practice living in the spiritual world. And if we make mistakes, we beg our spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada for forgiveness. And we continue the path of sadhana bhakti, bhajana kriya, anartha nivriti, so that one day we are fully pure, fully cleansed, and we go to the real spiritual world in its full development. And we enjoy. What else is there to do? We enjoy. That's it. I'll stop there. I'll see if there are any questions, comments, corrections. Yes, Prabhu?
Thank you very much for this really nice lecture. I wanted to ask, because sometimes I hear, I read, and I also get attracted to like the beauties of the spiritual world, and then I see myself, oh yes, I would like to be there, and then I feel also a little bit of guilt instead, because it seems for me more that I'm looking for liberation, for mukti, more than actually wanted to have a more pure motivation. So what would be your suggestion in trying also, how can I keep more of a pure motive also behind, while reading, while getting attracted to?
So the idea, the desire to go to the spiritual world, we should not feel guilty about that. It is a far, far better desire than anything in this material world. Any project, anything you can think of to do here, just the desire to go to the spiritual world, to be with Krishna, is something all the acharyas will be very happy with us for. Now, of course, the pure devotees of the Lord have another level beyond this also. This literature, the scriptures give us this vision, this brochure, as I called it, of access and a desire to develop our desire to be with Krishna in the spiritual world. Now the great preachers of the Lord Chaitanya, Prahlad Maharaj, Narad Muni and others, they understand that actually the potency of devotional service is so high that by engaging in devotional service, one can be situated in the spiritual world right now in our consciousness. And that presence, if we remain here in this world, can be used to deliver others. Right? And so therefore persons like Prahlad Maharaj, they say many nice things. One verse is, Naivodvijay paraduratyaya vaitaranyastvad gayana mahamrita magnachittaha shochetato vimukachetasa indriyartha maya sukhaya bharamutvahato vimudhan. And then in another verse, Prahlad Maharaj explains that there are so many great sages and saints. Monam charanti vijanena parartha nishta naitan vihaya kripanan vimumuksha eko nanyatvadasya sharanam ramatonupasya. He says there are so many great munis, saints, yogis who practice great vows of austerity, silence. And he's saying they basically go to the Himalayas and practice spiritual life to become perfect. But Prahlad Maharaj says, but actually I don't want to be like them. Because I know that this place, this material world, is such a miserable place. And all the living entities are here, stuck in the misery of this material place. I know that the only way they can be happy is if somehow they are brought to the shelter of your lotus feet, Lord Krishna. That's Prahlad Maharaj's thought process. That the only way these poor living entities can be happy is if they are brought to the shelter of your lotus feet. Therefore he says, I don't care about being in the material world. I don't care about swimming in this river, the Vaitarani river, which separates the material and spiritual world, which if you read in the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam is a pretty disgusting place. There's a description of that river which is sinful, it's a troublesome place. And he says, I don't actually care about the problems of this world. If simply I can be engaged in the service of you, my Lordship, and I can somehow bring these poor conditioned souls to your lotus feet, that is what I will consider perfection. Now that is another step beyond this. That is a step of thinking which is accessible to the internal, confidential, pure devotees of the Lord, who have somehow been inspired or empowered, you can say, by Srila Prabhupada and Narad Muni. When these persons have empowered you, you understand that even going to the spiritual world to enjoy with Krishna, that can wait. There's something a little more important to do. There's something that Lord Caitanya himself came to this miserable place to do. He's eternally enjoying in the spiritual world. All the gopis are there, all the Lakshmis are there. He's Krishna himself. Unlimited enjoyment. But he comes to this miserable world out of compassion for the living entities. So then the spiritual master instructs the disciple that actually your connection to the spiritual world depends upon how much you follow in the footsteps of Lord Caitanya. And when you engage in the Harinam Sankirtan mission, you have a blissful experience even here in this world. Even while you're out there and maybe it's difficult and people are not nice to you and all sorts of difficulties come. I know what it is like to have to just keep a temple. There are so many problems you have to deal with the local authorities, with the neighbors, with general public, with people within the temple. Multiple problems are there. But if somehow we accept all of those and we keep in mind the real nectar, and you just see the transformation in people's lives when they receive a little nectar from Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet. Just a little preaching, a little wisdom from Shastra. You realize that that actually is the spiritual realm. That is actually, for the disciple, for a follower of Lord Chaitanya and the Goswamis, that is actually the spiritual world for us. But so people don't think that we are cheating them, that we're actually promising them a spiritual world, and actually then later on we tell them, actually you just stay here and be happy. Just convince yourself to be happy. That was not such good preaching, actually. So therefore, it is also very equally clear and emphasized that the spiritual world does exist. Dhamna svena sadani rastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi. I meditate on Krishna, who is eternally existent in his spiritual world, his realm. So that world does exist. And if somehow in our preaching we can make people aware of the existence of this world, and they develop a little desire to go to that world, that will be a great service. But for those who want a little more, those who want more excitement, those who want to enter into the heart of our spiritual masters and their desires, then preaching the Lord's glories will keep us very happy indeed. So there's no guilt there, no guilt. Everyone should be happy about going to the spiritual world, and by engaging in the Harinam Sankirtan mission, they can also know factually that they are here in the spiritual world. Because wherever the Lord's glories are chanted, the Lord himself is present. Right? Sadhavo hridayam mahyam sadhunam hridayam tu aham. I am in the hearts of my devotees, and the devotees are in my hearts, in my heart. Is Krishna's not thinking of anything else? That's Krishna for you. He is wherever his glories are being discussed. And Lord Nityananda, Lord Caitanya manifest whenever you find a Jagai and a Madhya. I asked one senior person in the movement, how do we get the mercy of Lord Nityananda Prabhu? On Nityananda Trayodashi, I asked him, and he said, you find a Jagai and Madhya and preach to them. Because that is the spirit of Lord Nityananda. That's what he does. He doesn't care that the Jagai and Madhya hit him and his head started to bleed. He thinks, here is a Jagai and Madhya, and they desperately need the mercy of the Lord. And so we have all these wonderful examples and encouragements, from those who have dedicated their life to Krishna's mission. And it's not artificial. Someone cannot continue to be a devotee for 20, 30, 40 years, happily engaged in the mission of the Lord, if there isn't any taste there. There is real taste there. And you will experience that taste as long as you also follow this path of purification, of bhajana kriya and anartha nivriti. Those things have to be dealt with before you get to nishta and then ruchi, which is taste. So a long career in Krishna consciousness does bring about great happiness and taste, but only if it is done properly in a fully rounded way, with all aspects of our mentality, our social needs, our spiritual needs. If they're all taken care of in a proper way, we can move very healthily forwards in spiritual life. Anything else? Any question? Yes, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, for the wonderful class. I would like to ask you something personal. Maybe if you heard something from your Gurudev about the spiritual world you can remember, or of other sannyasis or gurus, some rememberings.
This is a little tricky one. Different spiritual masters do give insights to their disciples. One spiritual master I know, who has now passed away, when one of his disciples passed away, he said he saw in a vision. He saw in a vision that this person was a devotee who had done a lot of service for the mission in many different ways. And he said in his vision he saw that he was proceeding towards the spiritual world. Kind of like a passage was being made. And there in the spiritual world, a whole reception was being produced, getting ready to welcome this devotee. And he said when he received this vision about his disciple, he was in no doubt, that this is the destination of the sincere practitioner of Krishna consciousness. That's one example. The spiritual master is qualified and competent to know the heart of the disciple and to know the disciple's spiritual progress. And we sing, right? We sing in the morning with the Arti to Prabhupada, Janme Janme Prabhu Se. He is my Lord, birth after birth. The spiritual master takes that commitment to keep taking birth here in this world until you are delivered. Now imagine that. You are the cause of your spiritual master having to come back again and again until you're delivered. So better get delivered quickly. So he doesn't have to keep coming here and struggling and suffering and all of that. As for the details of the spiritual world, those will be revealed to individuals at appropriate times. It is said that each of us has a particular bhav, a particular sthai bhav, you can say, a particular constitutional position, a particular form even in the spiritual world. Now, our focus is always the Vaidhi sadhana practice. And so therefore we don't get so much into Siddha Pranali mantras and these other things which are sometimes emphasized by devotee groups which are not ISKCON. They have an emphasis on this. And we should be very cautious of this. Very cautious and very careful. Because this is not at all the mood of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, the Goswamis, to casually and cheaply engage in this type of meditations and discussions before we are ready. The actual demonstrated example of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, is strong, strict Vaidhi sadhana practice. Internally, something else is going on. As a devotee advances, Krishna may send someone. Krishna within the heart, maybe the spiritual master may appear directly to that disciple. And he may reveal some things to that disciple about his eternal relationship in the spiritual world. That is always confidential. If that person then goes and starts broadcasting it, look, my spiritual master came to me in a dream yesterday and told me I'm a peacock. Or I'm now a gopi, and I'm going to dress as a gopi. Then you have this funny situation, as you have with the sahajiyas, right? Where you have these old men with beards, putting on saris and dancing around, pretending to be having a rasa dance with Krishna. And our acharyas are very strongly against this. Very strongly. This sahajiyism is something that was rampant around Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time. In fact, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when he came about 200 years ago, that period since Lord Chaitanya's departure and to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's appearance, there was a period of great degradation. In fact, Vaishnavas became, they developed a reputation for being just frivolous. For the genuine sadhus, the genuine devotees could see the Vaishnava in general as just basically being sahajiyas or cheaters. They were so degraded. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur had this very tough job of re-establishing the actual potent lifestyle of a Vaishnava in a large way. And he spent a lot of time and trouble to do this. And so he constantly spoke out against sahajiya tendencies. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, the ray of Vishnu, was so strong, so fixed in strictness. He was very, very strict, actually. Sometimes we were scared. He was actually very strict with the brahmacharis, especially. But I'm not sure how many brahmacharis today would survive with Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj's strict expectations. But he was tough. But Srila Prabhupada also said, the grand guru is always very extra merciful. Just like the grandfather is more merciful to the child than the father is often, right? Sometimes the children will run to the grandfather if the parents are being too strict or like that. So actually he also simultaneously said that actually my spiritual master is very merciful. Take shelter at his lotus feet. But just this is to emphasize how in their practice, in their sadhana, how strict they were and how they did not entertain at all premature or frivolous discussions about our interactions with Krishna, the gopis, or our Siddha Swarup or anything like that. And these are routine topics of discussion for other devotee groups. We should be very cautious and keep a strong distance from them. It may seem like, what's the problem? They're all talking about Krishna and they're advanced. The problem is it's not in accordance with Srila Prabhupada. It's not in accordance with Srila Prabhupada's demonstrated example. It's not in accordance with his words. It's not in accordance with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, his direct behavior. It was not at all appreciated by Lord Chaitanya when individuals did this to claim their greatness. Lord Chaitanya was very, very happy when he saw his disciples, especially the Goswamis, undertaking severe austerities. Now, we're not really expected to do that, but that is a dimension and an element of it. And what happens when you engage in the lifestyle of the Goswamis is that there is an absence of any sense gratification. One can look at someone who is like Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami, and you can develop faith in their descriptions of the spiritual world. Why? Because they have no personal agenda. Whereas someone else who is making a business out of spiritual life, making a business out of attracting people, asking donations from them, and then promising them that their health will be cured or they will receive a lot of wealth. It's very difficult to place your faith in such a person because we all get so much business propaganda constantly. Rather, you can only place your faith in someone who has only Krishna as the goal of their life, who cares for nothing else. Material comforts, all of that is secondary thing. They do not make any effort for them. That really inspires a person. And so that lifestyle that has been given to us an example. I mean, look at Prahlad Maharaj's own example. We don't have time, but in the 7th canto, his glories is, if we want to actually become close to Lord Nrsingadev, we have to understand Prahlad Maharaj. We have to understand Prahlad Maharaj's mood. Because long before Lord Nrsingadev appeared, Prahlad Maharaj was, as a small boy, telling people, Kaumaram acharet pragyo dharman bhagavataniha. Right from the very tender age of childhood, one should immediately engage in Bhagavad Dharma, because there is not a moment to be lost. If we then understand his pure, deep focus and faith in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we will understand what state of consciousness he had that actually invited or caused Lord Nrsingadev to appear. To deal with Hiranyakashipu is really quite simple. Doesn't require much, Doesn't require the pillar to crack. Doesn't require him to appear. None of that's needed. He can just do something just like this. And Hiranyakashipu is finished. He comes only to please Prahlad Maharaj. Only to please him, to satisfy him. And these are the examples that we should follow. So if there's any doubt in our mind, because sometimes the preaching of other people can be convincing for those who are weak in their own practice. It will not have any impact on someone who is strongly situated at the lotus feet of Prabhupada. There's no danger they can wander off here and there and be attracted by some statements that sound colorful or sound nice. There's no danger of that. But sometimes in a moment of weakness, or if our faith decreases, or if due to offenses, somehow Krishna covers us for a little while, at that time others may attract us with an alternative presentation. So we should be very careful. So this topic is a confidential item. And the devotees within ISKCON who take shelter properly of Prabhupada often do have miraculous and totally divine experiences with the Lord. You probably have all heard some of the stories and pastimes recounted by His Grace Jananivas Prabhu, Pankajangri Prabhu, their connections with Lord Nrsingadev in Mayapur. There's even a booklet I read once about the wonderful miracles that took place there. And similarly, each person actually in their temples, they will have some recollection of something special, something magic that happened between them and the Lord. And this is all possible and will happen also in due course of time. But if we just develop an attraction for the spiritual world, and that remains our goal, then we will very quickly get there. That's Prabhupada's guarantee. That's his guarantee. And it even says, Tattenu kampam susamikshamana bunjana evatma kritam vipakam ridvag vapur bhir vidadham namaste jiveyato mukti pade sadaya bhak. This is how Lord Brahma prays in the 10th canto, that if someone in this life simply patiently tolerates the reactions of their past misdeeds, basically a devotee sits there and realizes, I'm suffering now, and it is only a result of my past misdeeds. I'm not going to get angry at anyone. I'm not going to complain at anyone. I won't blame the immediate instrument that gives me this trouble. I won't blame the temple president. I won't blame my family. I won't blame Krishna. I won't blame whoever it is that we want to blame. I will simply tolerate the results of my past misdeeds. It says in that verse that going to the spiritual world becomes his rightful claim. It's like it is your inheritance. Prabhupada writes in that purport, he says, a child just needs to stay alive in order to get the inheritance from the parent. Right? It doesn't have to do anything. Just stay alive. Then naturally, according to that system, something will come, right? Through the process of inheritance. If we just remain in Krishna consciousness, simply patiently tolerate whatever problems come to us in this life and worship Krishna, right? That's the second part of the verse also. And engage in devotional service and worship Krishna. Then the spiritual world just becomes something we inherit. We just naturally go there. And that should inspire us. That the process, although it is full of such great literary complexity, such great examples, it's actually very simple. And if you have a simple heart with no other agenda, it's actually very easy to do. You can just simply sail through years of Krishna conscious bliss and transformation. And at the end of it, go straight to Krishna. It's all possible just through this book, through these books and through our conduct. Anything else, Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the inspiring class. You talked about also that envy is not existing in the spiritual world, that devotees practice here in the material world or in a temple to be non-envious. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit on envy, how to get free from envy.
This is one of the most difficult things to get rid of, because it is the root cause of our stay here in this world. Sometimes, when you meditate on Lord Ram's pastimes, Lord Ramachandra, and at certain times of the year, like Dashera, when the victory, Ram Vijay Utsava, takes place, and Lord Ramachandra kills Ravana. Well, we know Ravana has 10 heads, right? And as Lord Ram is firing arrows, removing each of those heads, another one is popping up like this, just coming back. And each of these heads, they are a depiction of the anarthas: lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, madness, illusion, all of these things. And this envy and lust, these are often the most difficult ones to get rid of. So all the heads get removed. But as long as envy is there, they all pop back again. They all pop back again. All 10 of them. And so Lord Ram was wondering what to do, how to deal with this, until he finally heard that there is a source of nectar in his heart, in Ravana's heart, which gives him that sustenance. Then he fired his arrow in the core of Ravana's heart and destroyed that envy. That's where it sits. That envy sits in the core of our heart. As soon as it develops a little bit in the spiritual world, immediately we come to this world. When that little envy turns up, and initially it is as simple as, oh, Krishna, you are enjoying with all your servants, with all your gopis, your gopas. I would like to enjoy also. I would like others to serve me. When that little thought comes into the mind, the whole system begins, and you are thrown out, cast out. Okay, you want that? Come to the material world. There you can be the master. Whatever you would like to be the master of. You can be the master of a country. You can be the master of a family if you want. The husband thinks he's the head of the family. The wife thinks she's in charge. Yes, come to the spirit, come to the material world. You can be the boss. You start up a company, you think, I'm controlling this company. You happen to be the prime minister or the president or the king or the queen. You think, I'm in charge of the world. I'm in control. No. Even if you are actually no one, you're still thinking you're in control of something. And so Prabhupada says, when someone needs something to serve, they get a dog. If there is absolutely no one that they can control or serve, they get a dog. And then they control the dog. It is the pet. So whoever it is, the poorest person, the most opulent person, the most competent person, they are thinking they're the controller in this world. And it is all a mistake, because we are actually prakriti, designed to give pleasure to the Lord. We're not meant to be purusha, enjoying this world. And that's the thing that is envy. That initial desire that I would like to become the master of something and enjoy and receive service. That is the disqualification. That's envy. So to reverse that, you have to do the opposite. We have to be firmly situated in a consciousness that I am not here as the Lord and Master of the world. I am not here on this machine enjoying the activities carried out by nature. I am here as a servant of the Lord. And eventually that false ego, which is that kind of entity, that element in us, that is the repository of envy, that ego surrenders to Krishna. You can't destroy the ego. It cannot be destroyed, but it has to surrender to Krishna. It has to voluntarily surrender at the lotus feet of Krishna. And when that happens, Krishna places his lotus feet on that living entity and says, okay, you can come back to me. I will give you shelter again. So it is really something where through our practice and through our intense sadhana and service to the devotees, at a certain point, we completely break down. And we just say to Krishna, Krishna, I'm just fed up of this. I'm fed up of this material world where I'm constantly trying to be the master, trying to think everything is for my pleasure. Krishna, please free me from this. Please accept me as your servant. I don't want anything else. And the sincere devotee will eventually come to this point of complete dissatisfaction with the world and everything in it. And when that happens, when he's totally disgusted with this world and he wants nothing further to do with anything ego-based, at that time, that ego transforms into the real ego. We talk of false ego always, right? That's the repository of envy. That transforms into the real ego, which is, I am a servant of the Lord. I am part and parcel of the Lord, designed to give him pleasure. When that happens, no more problems. That's the end of envy. That's the end of envy. And it requires just surrender to the Lord. There's many stories you can tell. You can tell the story of Vibhishan with Lord Ram, how he approached him and surrendered to him. And Lord Ram said, I will protect anyone who desires to take full shelter of me. So he's ready. Lord Nrsingadev is ready. The forms of the Lord are ready. Lord Krishna is ready. The Guru is ready. Just waiting for us to make this move. I don't want envy anymore. That's our project, if you like. Anything else? Questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Sri Caitanya Caritamrita ki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Srila Prabhupada ki.